You know that feeling when you glance at something simple, like an acorn, and then suddenly you're tumbling down this rabbit hole of really profound questions about existence itself?
Oh, absolutely.
Today, we are diving headfirst into that very rabbit hole.
Yeah.
The sprawling, fascinating field of metaphysics.
Yeah.
It's all about identifying what is truly real, what is being, and trust us, it's not always as obvious as it seems.
Indeed. Our mission in this deep dive is, well, to take sources and really uncover the core ideas and the surprising connections, the moments that might truly challenge how you see the world.
Right.
We'll explore these fundamental questions that have puzzled thinkers for, well, millennia, from ancient Greece to India, all to help you gain a deep but hopefully clear understanding of reality, self, God, and free will.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're going to start by grappling with the very idea of substance, like what things are truly made of.
The fundamentals.
Then we'll move into the tricky terrain of who you really are. That's a big one.
Always is.
Before daring to ask about the existence of God. And finally, we'll grapple with whether you truly have free will. This is where the debate truly intensifies. So our journey begins with something as common as an acorn becoming a mighty oak. It's a radical transformation, right?
Completely.
Yet we instantly understand it's the same thing.
How did ancient philosophers first try to, well, make sense of this profound mystery, this whole change and persistence thing?
It's a brilliant starting point, actually.
Yeah.
Aristotle, observing exactly that acorn to oak process, he offered this really powerful framework.
Okay.
He introduced the idea of telos.
Telos.
Yeah, which is a thing's inherent purpose or goal. And ergon, its function.
Purpose and function about it.
So the oak tree isn't just randomly appearing. It works from its acorn state toward its full potential, its telos.
Ah, okay.
He called this movement from potentiality
to actuality. And what's truly real, the underlying constant that allows for this change, is that which stands beneath the movement.
I find that incredibly intuitive, that something exists underneath the surface level changes. So that which stands beneath, that sounds like the core of what we're searching for when we ask what's real.
That's the idea.
The Latin term substantia refers to exactly this, right? The basic reality of a thing, what supports or stands under its features, even as those features change. But right away, a massive question emerges. How many of these real things are there? Is all reality fundamentally one thing or many different things?
And that dichotomy leads us straight to the earliest metaphysical positions, back with the pre-Socratics. Monism.
Meaning reality is one single thing.
Basically, yeah, singular. While pluralism claims it's many.
It's wild to imagine ancient philosophers like Thales of Miletus confidently declaring that everything, the really real, is just water.
Yeah.
What was his rationale? How did he make such a bold claim?
Well, Thales observed water's necessity for life, right? And its ability to change states, solid, liquid, gas. And it seemed to be everywhere.
Okay.
From this, he made a consistent, pretty rational argument for the time that water was the fundamental principle, the arch, from which everything else derived. The genius, or maybe the radicalness, was his insistence on a single material explanation for everything. For him, true being was eternal. Change wasn't real, not fundamentally. It was just an alteration of appearances of this one underlying substance.
But if everything is just water, then, I don't know, the unique solidity of a rock or the fleeting warmth of a flame, they seem less real somehow.
Exactly. That's the pushback.
So how did the pluralists challenge this singular view?
Well, the pluralists, like Leucippus and Democritus, they basically said, no, it can't be just one thing.
Right.
They proposed atomism, the idea that reality is made of atomos, literally uncuttable bits of matter, eternal and unchanging little bits.
Atoms, like we think of today.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Kind of the precursor, yeah. The world we experience, with all its diversity, was just the result of these atoms colliding, joining, or separating in a void.
Okay.
But what's truly fascinating is that both the early monists and pluralists often shared a core belief. True being was eternal and unchanging. Any change we observed was just an illusion or maybe a rearrangement of things that weren't truly real.
Which led to this kind of counterintuitive conclusion.
Right. That neither our acorn nor our oak are truly real entities in themselves. Because they change.
That seems like a bit of a philosophical dead end if you can't account for the very change we see every day.
It does feel that way.
But didn't some traditions manage to integrate both permanence and change? I remember reading about a different kind of atomism.
Absolutely. Indian philosophy, specifically Acharya Kanad's Vaishika school, offered a version of atomism that did account for change. It's really interesting.
How so?
His concept of anu, or atoms, weren't just undifferentiated bits. They possess specific attributes, like an earth atom having odor, or a water atom having taste.
Oh, so the atoms themselves had qualities?
And what's more, these atoms combined in precise ways, forming dyads and triads to build the world we perceive.
Okay.
This framework allowed for the rich, changing reality we experience, making our acorn and oak quite real in their process of becoming. It's a different take.
So we're moving from just what things are made of to what qualifies as being at all. This deeper inquiry into existence itself? That's ontology, right?
Precisely. Ontology, the study of being. And this is where Plato and Aristotle took very different paths.
You know, Plato's famous allegory of the cave, right? Where prisoners mistake shadows for reality.
Classic.
Plato argued that if we want to find the really real, we need to go beyond these temporary shadows to unchanging forms or ideas which exist outside our physical world. That's how we recognize dogness, say, despite all the different kinds of dogs.
Right. These forms, unlike material things, they don't decay, they don't change. They're the perfect blueprints of reality, in his view.
But Aristotle, his student, he wasn't buying the otherworldly part.
Not exactly. He respected Plato immensely, but fundamentally disagreed with locating these forms outside the world. He proposed hylomorphism.
Hylo what now?
Hylomorphism. Hyl meaning matter, morphin meaning form. He said substance is a composite of matter and form, but crucially, the form exists within the matter.
Ah, so not separate.
Not separate. Think of a sculptor's idea in forming the marble. Acorn's purpose and form, its telos that drives its becoming the oak, and that form is in the acorn itself.
Not in some distant ideal realm.
Exactly, not floating around somewhere else.
That's a powerful distinction. What stands out to me is how Aristotle brings those forms into our world. It makes the change from acorn to oak feel more, I don't know, tangible and understandable.
Grounded, maybe?
Yeah, grounded is a good word. More grounded than Plato's abstract realm. It's like that famous Raphael painting, The School of Athens. Plato's pointing up to the heavens, the realm of forms.
And Aristotle's gesturing down, towards the earth, towards observable reality.
Visually capturing this whole debate. Okay, if things are constantly changing, what about us? Are you the same person you were 10 or 20 years ago? I mean, your cells are constantly replaced, your memories shift.
Right.
This isn't just a philosophical puzzle. It feels deeply personal.
It absolutely is. This is the core of the dilemma of persistence, and it's perfectly captured by the ship of Theseus thought experiment.
The ship of Theseus. Remind us.
Okay, so if you have a ship and over, say, 1,000 years, every single plank, every nail, every bit of it is replaced, is it still the same ship?
Good question. My intuition says maybe not, or maybe. It's tough.
Exactly. It challenges our gut feeling about identity, especially when we apply it to ourselves, where our physical stuff is constantly being renewed. It's like asking if you've swapped out every part of your car, is it still your car?
Right. So how have different traditions tried to define this elusive self when everything's always changing?
Well, many Western traditions identify the self with an eternal soul.
Okay, the soul.
This soul offers permanence, persistence. It's a spiritual essence that remains unchanged, which neatly solves the ship of Theseus problem for us.
So the soul is the thing that stands beneath the changes in us.
In that view, yes. St. Thomas Aquinas, for instance, he integrated Aristotle's ideas, defining God as the unmoved mover and necessary being who assigns purpose to the self, to the soul. So it's a whole teleological cosmology where the soul is guided toward its ultimate end.
So an unchanging soul seems to offer a clear answer. But what happens if you look beyond Western thought?
Great question. Moving eastward, Hindu traditions often identify the self with Atman, the eternal self, which is reincarnated. The spiritual goal there, moksha, is liberation through realizing that this Atman is actually Brahman, ultimate reality itself.
Well, it's not just an individual soul, but part of the universal.
Exactly. It's an eternal universal self that has always been just sort of veiled by illusion, by Maya.
Okay, so Atman also points to an eternal core, like the soul. But then you have Buddhist philosophy, which seems to just turn that idea completely on its head.
It really does. Buddhist philosophy introduces anatman.
Atman meaning no self.
Precisely. The doctrine of no self. It explicitly rejects the idea of an eternal soul or any fixed static self.
Wow.
It asserts that the me, the sense of self, is ephemeral. It's just a collection of constantly changing processes.
So what am I then? in that view?
Well, all phenomena, including our sense of self, are seen as interdependent. This is called dependent origination. Everything arises in dependence on other things.
A nexus of interdependency.
Exactly, with no first cause or prime mover needed.
That's a radical idea for many. If there's no fixed self, how does that relate to suffering? That's a core concept in Buddhism, right? Dukkha.
This radical concept of no self profoundly reshapes the understanding of suffering, leading straight into the Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering, dukkha, isn't just about ordinary pain. It's also the suffering that comes from the impermanence of all things, the parinama dukkha.
Because nothing lasts.
Right, and also suffering that arises from our very interdependency, samkara dukkha. The self, in this view, is described using the 5 aggregates, or skandhas.
Skandhas.
Yeah, things like form, sensation, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Think of it like a chariot. The wheels, the axle, the body, they aren't the chariot individually.
But together they function as one.
Exactly. Our experience of self arises from these changing aggregates, but there's no unchanging driver, no substance underneath. It's all process.
And the path to liberation, nirvana,
involves letting go of craving, tanha, recognizing that attachment to a non-existent static self is what causes suffering.
Okay, so if the self isn't an eternal soul, and it's not even a fixed bundle of things, what else could it be? David Hume had a different idea, right? The bundle theory.
He did. Hume, a thoroughgoing empiricist, suggested the self is just a bundle or collection of different perceptions which succeed each other with inconceivable rapidity and are in a perpetual flux and movement.
Like a stream of consciousness.
Sort of. He said your mind is a kind of theater where perceptions just pass and repass. But crucially, there's no fixed spectator, no enduring self watching the show, just the show itself.
Wow. No audience, just the play.
Pretty much.
And John Locke took a slightly different tack, suggesting something closer to what we might think of as our personal story, our memories.
Right. Locke offered psychological continuity. For him, identity is based on consciousness and memory.
Okay.
He famously suggested that if a prince's and a cobbler's memories and consciousness were somehow swapped,
their identities would swap too.
Exactly. Proving, for Locke, that identity isn't about the physical body, the substance, but about the continuity of conscious experience, the memories that link us over time.
So whether it's an eternal soul, a flowing stream of perceptions, or a tapestry of memories, our understanding of self profoundly impacts how we see our place in the world.
Definitely.
And speaking of the world, that brings us to an even bigger question that has puzzled humanity for millennia. How did it all begin? Let's explore cosmology.
The study of the universe's origin and order.
And that age-old search for a first cause.
For millennia, yeah, this unmoved mover, or first cause, has often been equated with the divine. It's about explaining the order and existence of everything we observe, the very fabric of reality itself.
Thomas Aquinas, building on Aristotle again, he proposed that things lacking knowledge, like an arrow flying towards a target, they act towards an end by design, not just by chance. So he argued they must require direction by an intelligent being, God.
It's a classic teleological argument, an argument from design or purpose.
Yeah, and William Paley's watchmaker analogy makes it really vivid, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He says, you find a watch on the ground, you see its intricate parts working together.
You know, someone must have made it. A watchmaker.
Right. You infer a designer. Paley extends this look at the incredible complexity of the human eye, or the universe itself, in all its sophisticated order.
He argues it implies a divine designer.
Yes. The sophistication we observe, he argued, simply couldn't have occurred just by chance. It points towards intelligence.
Beyond design, some argue for God based on our sense of right and wrong. Morality.
The moral argument, yes.
If objective moral values exist, values that apply to everyone, not just subjective beliefs, where do they come from? One argument points to God as the source of their objective validity. But this raises a tricky question, doesn't it? Does morality depend on God, or can we understand ethics separately?
That's a huge debate within ethics and theology. Does God command something because it's good, or is it good because God commands it? The Euthyphro dilemma.
Right. And then there's Anselm's argument, which is quite different, a priori.
Yes, Anselm's ontological argument. A priori means it relies on reason alone, not on experience or observation of the world.
Okay, how does that work?
He defined God as a being than which nothing greater can be conceived, the greatest possible thing you can imagine. Then he argues, It's greater for something to exist in reality and in the mind than just in the mind alone.
Okay, like an imagined perfect island versus a real perfect island.
Exactly. The real one is greater. So Ansung concludes, God, being the greatest conceivable being, must exist in reality. Because if God only existed in the mind, then you could conceive of something greater, namely, a God who exists in reality too.
Huh. It's purely conceptual, but it's had a long influence.
Very influential and very controversial.
And in Hindu traditions, we see another argument for the divine, but linked to karma.
Right. The idea is that the well-ordered just results of karma, the causal law linking actions to effects across lifetimes, seem to imply a conscious agent, maybe God or some divine intelligence, maintaining this cosmic moral order.
The fairness of it suggests a guiding hand.
Something like that. The appropriateness of karmic outcomes seems too precise to be purely mechanical, some argue. It suggests oversight.
However, not all traditions support the existence of a god in this way, or even find these arguments convincing.
Definitely not. The Mimamsa school in India, for example, they were focused on understanding the Vedas and performing rituals correctly. They found the cosmological and teleological arguments for God inconclusive.
They just focused on proper living.
Pretty much, based on the eternal authority of the Vedas, without necessarily needing a divine author or sustainer for the cosmic order.
But perhaps the most enduring challenge, certainly in the West, how can a benevolent God exist when there's so much suffering, so much seemingly senseless evil in the world? It's a question that plagues many people of faith and non-faith alike.
David Hume famously articulated the logical problem of evil. He laid it out very starkly.
How do you put it?
Basically, if God is omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing, and omnibenevolent, all-good, then evil shouldn't exist. If God knows about suffering and would stop it but can't, God isn't omnipotent. If God is able and would stop it but doesn't know about it, God isn't omniscient.
And if God knows and is able, but doesn't wish to stop it,
then God isn't omnibenevolent, isn't all good. It seems like you can't have all three qualities coexist with the reality of evil. It appears contradictory.
William Rowe's evidential problem of evil then took it a step further, right? Focusing on specific examples.
Yeah, Rowe focused on specific instances of intense, seemingly gratuitous suffering. His famous example is a fawn dying slowly and horribly in a forest fire, unseen by anyone who could help.
Horrible.
He argued that a wholly good being could prevent such suffering without losing some greater good or permitting some worse evil. The sheer existence of that kind of pointless suffering, he argued, makes God's existence less likely, even if it doesn't logically disprove it.
So how have theologians responded? Augustine had a famous approach.
Augustine, coming from a Christian perspective, argued that evil isn't a positive entity, not a thing that God created. Instead, evil is a privation.
A privation, like a lack of something.
Exactly, a negation or absence of the good. So God, being all good, doesn't create evil. Evil is simply the excess of good. Much like darkness is the absence of light, it's not a created substance.
That shifts the perspective quite a bit.
It does. It reframes the problem.
And there's an incredibly interesting alternative I read about from the Yoruba African perspective. Very different.
Oh, yes.
Instead of God causing evil, or even allowing it in the Augustinian sense, agency is placed on these spiritual beings called ajogun.
Ajogun, okay.
And here, evil isn't primarily sin in the moral sense, but more like a destruction of life, misfortune, things that disrupt harmony. And fascinatingly, it's even seen as sometimes necessary for us to truly understand and appreciate the good. It's a different cosmological setup.
That bypasses the traditional Western problem of evil by having these other agents and defining evil differently. Very interesting.
All right, let's turn our gaze inward again, maybe for the final big question.
Yeah.
When you make a decision, you feel free.
Usually, yes.
You choose pizza over pasta, or you choose to listen to this deep dive. But does that sensation truly prove freedom exists?
It's a powerful feeling, that feeling of choosing, but yeah, it can be deceptive. Think about an amusement park ride.
Okay.
The one with the little steering wheel and maybe an accelerator pedal.
Yeah, the car ride for kids.
Right. The kid is steering, pushing the pedal, feeling totally in control, totally free, but there's a hidden track underneath guiding the car.
Okay. The feeling is real, but the freedom isn't.
Exactly. The driver feels free, but isn't. So this raises the question, are our choices similarly predetermined, even if we feel free? The feeling itself isn't proof.
So what does it mean to be truly free then? Is freedom like the ability to do otherwise? That seems intuitive.
That's one major definition, the principle of alternative possibilities, or PPP. If you chose A, you were only truly free if you could have chosen B instead. But then you run into challenges. What about the laws of nature? What about your upbringing, your genetics, societal conditioning? Don't these forces limit our options, maybe even determine them?
Yeah, it seems like maybe we couldn't always have done otherwise.
Philosopher Harry Frankfurt offered an alternative definition that actually sidesteps the PAP.
Okay.
He suggested freedom isn't necessarily about being able to do otherwise, but about the ability to do what one wants.
Doing what you want, how does that help?
Well, imagine an alien or a neuroscientist forces you to eat pizza. You had no other choice.
Okay, not free then.
What if you already wanted the pizza? Like you really, really desired that pizza?
Yeah.
Frankfurt argues that in that case, even though you couldn't have done otherwise, you were acting freely because you were acting on your own desire, your volition. You satisfied what you wanted to want.
So freedom is about alignment between your actions and your desires, regardless of whether other options were truly available.
That's his argument, yeah. It shifts the focus from alternative possibilities to internal consistency, your first and second order desires aligning.
That distinction really reframes the conversation. So with these definitions floating around, how do philosophers generally position themselves on free will?
Well, broadly speaking, there are three main camps. First is libertarianism.
And this isn't the political kind.
No, metaphysical libertarianism. This view argues that our actions are genuinely free. They are not fully caused or determined by external forces or prior events. We have genuine choice.
Like Jean-Paul Sartre saying we are condemned to be free.
Sartre's existentialism emphasizes radical freedom and responsibility. We are the authors of our actions because at the crucial moment, we could have done otherwise.
But a shadow of determinism looms large over that idea, right?
It does. Determinism asserts that all events, including human actions, are necessitated by prior causes and conditions together with the laws of nature.
Meaning it couldn't have happened any other way.
Precisely. Baron de Holbach was a famous proponent of hard determinism. He argued, we are all caught in these unbreakable chains of causative effect, just like billiard balls or planets.
So no real freedom at all.
In the hard determinist view, no. The feeling of freedom is an illusion born of ignorance of the true causes of our actions.
Okay, so we have libertarianism saying we're free, and hard determinism saying we're not. Seems like an impasse.
But here's where a fascinating middle ground, or perhaps a reconciliation, emerges. Compatibilism, also sometimes called soft determinism.
Compatibilism, meaning free will is compatible with determinism. How does that work?
Compatibilists argue that determinism is true, our actions are caused, but that this doesn't rule out free will if you define free will differently.
Like Frankfurt's definition. Doing what you want.
Precisely. If freedom means acting according to your desires and values without external coercion or constraint, then you can be free even if those desires themselves were determined by prior causes.
So my desire for pizza might be determined by my brain chemistry and past experiences, but if I act on that desire without someone holding a gun to my head, I'm still free.
That's the compatibilist line. You're acting on your determined desire, and that counts as freedom.
It's a clever way to have both. And William James offered another possibility, right? Indeterminism.
Yes, William James argued for indeterminism. He suggested that maybe not all events are rigidly determined. If there's even one small element of chance, one uncaused effect somewhere in the universe.
Like a random quantum event, maybe?
Perhaps. If there's any indeterminacy, then the future isn't strictly fixed. Not all events are just falling dominoes. There might be moments where genuine novelty or uncaused choices can enter the system, leaving room for genuine human freedom.
So libertarians say we're free, hard determinists say we're not, compatibilists say we can be both, sort of, and indeterminists suggest maybe reality isn't fully locked down anyway. How do we possibly reconcile these?
Well, one interesting approach is called contrastivism. It suggests that maybe different fields, like metaphysics and ethics, are actually asking slightly different questions when they talk about freedom.
How so?
Metaphysicians might be focused on freedom from causal determination. Ethicists might be more concerned with freedom from constraint or coercion, which is necessary for moral responsibility.
Ah, so they're looking at different contrasts. Free from what?
Exactly. Contrastivism suggests they might both be right in their own context. It allows for a kind of philosophical ceasefire, acknowledging the different concerns without forcing a single universal answer to, are we free?
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Different questions leading to different, potentially non-conflicting answers.
It's one way to navigate this very complex landscape. We've certainly journeyed a long way from the fundamental essence of that acorn to the intricacies of our own consciousness, probed arguments for and against a divine creator, and wrestled with this profound question of our own autonomy, our own freedom. These aren't simple answers, are they? They're really starting points for deeper reflection.
Definitely. And the sources you brought us, they really allowed us to connect this ancient wisdom with modern challenges. It shows how these foundational questions of metaphysics still shape our understanding of ourselves and the world. You've seen how different cultures, different thinkers grapple with what it means to be, to know, and to act. It's fascinating to see the diversity of thought.
It truly is.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If reality itself is this constantly shifting interplay of potentiality and actuality, like Aristotle suggested, and if our perception of self is maybe just a bundle of perceptions, as Hume thought, or an ever-changing process like the Buddhists describe, then perhaps our deepest understanding of self and purpose isn't found in fixed, final answers at all. Maybe it's down to the ongoing, curious exploration of these profound questions themselves.
Embracing the questions.
Exactly. What new questions does this deep dive spark for you?